Hello and welcome back to the Stepping Into Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Tori Stauffer, and today we have Gen Stoney with us. Welcome, Jen.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me, Tori.
Yeah, we've known each other a few years now, so I'm really excited to have you on here and share your story.
Me too.
Well, without further ado, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a woman who works with women in recovery and sobriety, and I help them truly come alive. Getting sober is one thing, putting down the drink is one thing, but then truly awakening yourself after sobriety and getting to know who you are, what you don't like, and learning how to be intimate with your romantic partner, learning how to have healthy romantic relationships, learning how to vocalize your needs in and out of the bedroom is really where I I love my work and I love helping the ladies. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you. So can you share a little bit about your story about like where you were and give us like a little timeline of, because I know you went through your recovery and then now you're doing this on a helping people through it kind of way. So what was your journey there?
My journey there was when I hit a rock bottom at 4 years sober and almost drank. And I had a drink 1 inch away from my mouth. Now, later I learned that once you make it 5 years sober, your likelihood of staying sober is really high. But it's to hit that 5 year sober mark. So at 4 years sober, basically what had happened was I was going, I was doing, and I was achieving and having success on the outside that made it look like everything was great, right? I had the six pack. I had the graduating with honors. I had the rock on my hand. I had the really good looking guy. I had the brand new car. I had it all is what it looked like. But in actuality, I was dead inside and I was performing. So I was living in the performance mode to do what I thought everybody else wanted me to do so I could get love and get validation. And that all came to a crash and burn at 4 years sober, where my life truly fell apart in a way that I didn't know was going to serve me for the highest good possible. And it was that my husband had an affair. And it truly cracked me open in a way that I am so grateful for today. And there's, of course, more to that story, but it led me on a journey to truly heal my sexual trauma from my past that I had been running from. And that's truly why I was drinking, right? We don't just drink because we're like we're numbing out and escaping something. And I was numbing out the sexual trauma that I didn't want to heal. And so, of course, it led me back to almost drinking because I didn't actually do the work. I did just enough recovery work to keep me sober for those 4 years. And then at 4 years, I dove back into it so I could stay sober and create a life far beyond my wildest dreams.
I say that all the time, the life beyond your wildest dreams. There's so much in there. I have like 8 things to talk about. Um, it really is. I know the term used to be dry drunk, right? Which is really, you are doing exactly what you said, doing the act of being sober, but really resisting all the inner work that is the gift of sobriety.
Yes.
So, how do you know if you're a person who is either trying to transform their life or is going through this? How do you know? Because I would imagine in the moment, in those 4 years, you probably thought you were doing all the work. Or did you know you were like, there's deeper I could go, but I don't want to touch that?
Oh, I thought I was perfect. Are you kidding me, Tori? I thought I was like God's gift to the world. So I think that was the first like red flag. I was in victim mode. So when I look back on the sobriety work I did then, and I open up my notebook and I read it and I cringe, I also want to hug my younger self because I did as much as I possibly could at the time. And being in victim mode means, well, look at all the stuff that happened to me, right? So I did all the work of I took all the junk and I basically put it out there in the middle of the room. And then I looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, I am such an amazing person. Look what I lived through. And then I skipped forward and I skipped my part. I did not look at my part. I was not honest with myself. I expected people to be different than who they actually were. So to give you an example, if someone's living in this life right now, it's mostly like pointing the finger at everyone else, being like, you're the problem, I'm amazing. Instead of approaching things with like, hey, I feel this way. And you're looking at the problem and you're going, okay, I know I bring something to the table. With the infidelity, I brought something to the table, which makes a lot of women cringe and get pissed off. But it's the truth. A problem doesn't happen with one person. So when you're approaching problems being like, I'm amazing, you fucked up. That's a sure sign that you're not looking at everything. Because when you're not able to take responsibility, that's a problem. Also, ultra independence. So when you are able to do everything on your own, I was doing everything under the sun and then some, and I thought I was Superwoman. Right? When you take 26 credit hours, make honor roll, then get into a second bachelor's program that is top 4 in the nation of that program, and you're planning a wedding, and there's a personal death in the family, and you stay sober, you're like, look at me. I'm amazing. I didn't need any support. Aren't I great?
Do you think that achievement, that I'm doing it all on my own, was what you substituted alcohol for?
I think it was a trauma response. I think I substituted success. I wanted the validation, and everybody around me was fine with it because I come from a family who there's a lot of people who function that way. And by the grace of God, I was able to learn from them. And what a gift that is, right? I don't have to do it because I saw what it did and how it played out long term.
So when you finally, that 4-year mark, when you were like, okay, this is it. I have to change something. What did you do? Was it therapy? Like, what did you do that shifted you?
The moment that really truly shifted me was I was on the floor in my condo. I was crying so hard I couldn't sleep. I was crawling out of my skin. When they say the feathers, like God sends you feathers, pebbles, and then motherfucking boulders, I like to have like 5 boulders come down sometimes. And like, I feel like that was the 5th boulder that like woke me up. It wasn't like one. And it was my entire world was shook. It's unexplainable, but I was on the floor, crawling out of my skin, screaming at God, being like, why me? Why me? I've done everything you've wanted. Look at all these great things I've accomplished. Don't I get something out of it? Right? Like I'm doing all of this. Isn't that enough? Why are you doing this to me? I was still in the victim. Mm-hmm. And God yelled at me, get up. And I was like, yeah, fuck you. And he was like, no, like get up. You're going to help women rise. And in that moment, I really thought I went nuts, Tori, because I was like, okay, I can't sleep. I can't stop crying. I am like feeling so uncomfortable in my body. And fortunately, I had a good friend who drove 8 hours and dropped everything and cleared alcohol out of my place and came to make sure that I wouldn't drink. So this was the day after she left. So fortunately, there was no booze in my alcohol. So to get alcohol was a lot harder. There wasn't Instacart during that time. You know, this was like 14 years ago. So here I am and I'm like, okay, get up. I'm like, how am I going to help women rise? How am I going to inspire people? I'm like, God, you're crazy. And he's like, get up. And in that moment, I realized I can draw a line in the sand. And I decided in that moment, enough's enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Romance has always been a mess. This is not the first time a man's cheated on me. I have always settled to think that romance is hard, relationships are hard, this is hard. Yeah, there's going to be opportunities of growth in a marriage, but it doesn't have to be hard. And so that is when I decided to truly learn how to approach love and intimacy and romance from a place of ease. And I decided that I was going to do the work because I saw I was the reoccurring problem, right? So I jumped into the programs, the coaches, the YouTube videos, the books, and I also paid and invested a mortgage payment into a coach monthly, all while going through divorce. And to do that, I had to live at my parents' house. So I had to move out of the condo and move into the room above the garage, which was just glorious at nearly 30 years old, let me tell you. And it was so worth it. It was so worth it. And I knew that if I didn't pick up a drink or a drug and I kept doing the work, everything would be more than okay. It would be amazing. And it was.
Yeah. It really is like not shying away from all of that, you know? And sometimes like facing who we've become really is kind of the hardest part. I'm a big believer in like a lot of it has to do with how we identify ourselves, like what we believe about ourselves is what's possible. So if you believe relationships are hard, men cheat on me, then of course that's what you're going to get. But if you believe, no, like I deserve an amazing fairy tale romance, then I feel like that's what you get. How much of it do you think for you was an identity kind of issue?
I think a lot was identity that was tied to the trauma and to my upbringing, right? So when you grow up in a chaotic family that models to you what is acceptable and what the standard is, after a while, I think like once you get to 18, I think it's like you can't blame your parents or your childhood, but you can do something about it. And so I chose to do something about it. And so I think my identity, my worth, my sense of what was acceptable, I mean, my standards were low, but I will tell you, the ego standards, so what everything looked like, was very high. So that's the interesting part, Tori, because yes, my standards of like my identity, my worth were low, but everything had to look really good.
It's like the Instagram. You were living the Instagram life.
Yes.
Everything looks fancy on the outside, but don't look at my kitchen counter.
Oh, dude, all day, all day. So yeah, I think that was a huge part of it. Also, I did get off social media for 7 years. So during this entire like unbecoming, this entire like awakening, this entire like rebuilding of my life, I could not trust what I was going to say or do. And so I wanted to respect my husband's family. I want to respect myself. And I didn't know if that little, like, my wily Italian mouthy self was going to come out. So I was like, well, if I just get off social media completely, I can at least ensure that I won't cause harm in that way. And I won't overshare or do something that I regret that you can't take back. And I really, truly feel that was a huge part of my growth and being able to come into my own, because I wasn't bombarded constantly with other people's thoughts. And I wasn't going into the addiction of self-help of like, okay, what do they think? You know, I wasn't posting a picture and being like, okay, I hope people like it. Or telling people what I was doing and being like, I hope they think that's okay. I was purely going within. I tightened my circle so tight, Tori. There were probably like 3 people that I really went to on a consistent basis that knew what was going on. And one of those I paid.
I think though, like the paid mentorship when you're going through something like that, you said the word unbecoming, and it hit me so deeply. Like I understand that because when you really are trying to step into a new version of yourself, you know, in the program, they call it people, places, and things, right? But it's not just in sobriety that we find that. Like when you're trying to become that next version of yourself, that next level, or whatever it is you're trying to achieve, surrounding yourself with the old people, places, and things that allow for that old behavior are dangerous to your evolution. And so finding mentors, finding rooms, finding safe people who support that next level of you and let you go through the messy middle of it is so important.
You know, and I think that brings up another point, is that for me to get sober, I lost a lot of my friends. There were a lot that like were proud of me and asked me to go out to coffee and do all that. But there's a lot of people I couldn't hang out with, and that quite frankly didn't want to hang out with me because I wasn't drinking and partying. And that was very hard to accept. But fast forward to this point in my life where I was like, okay, I'm gonna really look at all of this and get clear on it. I mimicked that. So the people who were not going to back me on the journey I was stepping into, I just didn't talk to them. I was very, very unapologetic with who I surrounded myself with. And there were some people who were really pissed off about that. They're like, well, what's going on in the divorce? What's going on in your marriage? And I wouldn't give them details like I used to in that toxic way. And they're like, but what else? I was like, well, that's between Ray and I. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, it's our marriage and our divorce, right? So I really feel that that was a true testament of why we were able to reconcile. There was intimacy and privacy in the healing that happened across those 2.5 years we were separated and didn't live together.
I didn't realize it was that long. That's incredible. Well, and I think it was also like you honored him in that way of like giving him not being the victim, not saying, oh, look at what he's doing to me, and honoring him as a person, as somebody who's trying to go through this with you.
Yeah, and a lot of people looked at it as, well, how can you reconcile? You guys didn't do marriage counseling. And that was a huge judgment. And what was really helpful during that is one, I did my own work. And my husband had his own dark night of the soul, man. And he did his own work. And the reason when we came back together 3 weeks before the divorce finalized, when we reconciled, we stayed separated for 1.5 years. So a whole year we're going through the divorce. And then 1.5 years we're separated and dating. We're not living together. And, during that point, I got to see him really take action in a way where I knew he did the work. And so when, I love that quote of like, I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are screaming so loudly. And, having someone can talk all day, someone can tell a therapist everything they want to hear, but to actually put it into action and show you that they really mean it and they love you, they're devoted to you, you can trust them again, that's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. You talk about being the unapologetic woman. What does that mean to you?
It means not putting yourself in a box to make other people happy. It means saying the thing and doing the thing and taking the action because in your heart it is your calling, and you're doing that not to please others, but to truly live out your life's calling and to truly live fully alive, to truly experience life and to continue to have those people around you who love that unapologetic self, who aren't going to go and gossip about you behind your back. They're going to celebrate you. And they're going to call you out on your bullshit, and you're able to have those conversations, but you don't need to be somebody else to get love. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned through that, was that I could be me, and it was safe to be me, and I could still receive love. I didn't need to be someone else. I didn't need to perform anymore. In the last few years, especially the last year, I went through some things, and let me tell you, Ray held me in a way where I was like such a mess. And he was like, how can I help you? Something would happen or come up with the situation. And he would say, what do you need? I just saw a text that came through. What do you need? How can I help you? Can I come get the kids? Do you need time alone? And, it makes me like teary-eyed and cry, because to have somebody who supports you in such a deep level and honors you and respects you and doesn't need any explanation and just knows is something that it's such a deep, beautiful love that I can't even explain it. And in this last year, I thought, wow, I'm so glad I didn't listen to those people who told me to leave him. I'm so glad I chose to stay the work. I'm so glad I was unapologetic and listened to my heart. Because what a gift it is to be married to somebody so amazing and so grounded and so thoughtful,
I think sometimes people think it's always supposed to be magical and rainbows and I mean marriage is work, no matter where you're at in it, but I think the piece you said about listening to your heart. I think so many women, especially, have such a hard time of listening to themselves for various reasons. One is like there's the noise of the outside, and not listening to everybody else. But there's also like you kind of shut off your self trust and your intuition at some point, and you start listening to all of the other stuff as truth, but we really do, especially as women, have a deep intuition and knowing. And I feel like women need to be taught how to listen to that again and how to open up. What was it for you? Like, at what point in this journey because I would imagine during, early stages of sobriety and even before there wasn't a self trust, right?
100%. And I did rely on other people and I did borrow other people's belief in me. For me to go to my first wedding sober, I was 2.5 months sober. I texted and called 20 women that day. So, on the outside though, I was smiley. I was in the dress. I was the hostess with the mostest because I was helping with the wedding. And, but I had a team of people because I was scared shitless of the decisions that I would make. So the self trust wasn't there. But by continuing to take action upon action and day upon day, I gained that self trust. And I think that that's the same with this. But throughout the last almost 14 years since then, so I'm coming up on 18 years sober in less than a week.
Congratulations. Oh, congratulations.
So crazy. Yeah, I'm officially an adult. Um, and, I look at that and it is whenever things start happening and I look at it and I'm like, I got to quiet the noise of the outside. And there's so many distractions, Tori, nowadays. So many.
There really is. And I have a problem with the like Instagram scroll hole sometimes because I
Same.
mean there is a piece of it for me that is work. Like I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was like, I don't know how much I'd be on here if it wasn't for needing to be on here for work. Because it becomes very like toxic. And now with the AI everything, you don't even know what's real and what's not. It's bananas.
Oh, it's disgusting. And I totally agree. I wouldn't. I got back on social media because I was like, well, if I actually want to take my business and turn it into a business, I need to be online, right? But it's especially, I would say, in the last year, there had been times where I got stuck in that Epstein file tunnel.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with your trauma history.
Yeah. And that was a little dicey where you can get
Yeah.
like sucked into the negativity and the politics and the just downright, I mean, the filth, right? And that was really depressing. And I still had to be mindful about, okay, I got my update. I have to step away. Like you can really get updated on the news in like a few minutes. You do not need to go down a tunnel of 200 reels, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer too in like, and I teach this in my own group, is you have to be very mindful, especially when you're trying to become the next version of you, or even just to maintain a good mindset of what you're surrounding yourself with. So yeah, like, do you have Debbie Downers in your group, but also like, what is your algorithm right now? And like I will purposely go on and start just liking all the silly dog videos and all the like light fluffy stuff when I start noticing that my algorithm is like trying to get me down. I will do it. But I also set parameters for myself now on how much time I'm allowed to be on there. And I have like forced myself downtime. And I also want to say like I don't think that social media is all bad because you talk about that unapologetic woman. I feel like Instagram gave me the platform to become the unapologetic woman because like if I'm here in person with my group of friends, I feel a little funny, speaking some of my truths. But there was a little bit of a safety in the anonymity of Instagram or TikTok of I can say whatever I want. And as I started doing that, more and more women started saying, "Oh my gosh, I feel this so deeply." And it really kind of gave me a platform.
I totally agree. And I feel like Facebook really did that for me. You know, I go into like all these different Facebook groups, share my story, share something inspiring, but also I could say anything I wanted. And I truly just was me, my fullness, that fullness that I loved about myself when I drank. I let her out in a different way. And it was so fun and playful. And like, I wasn't censoring myself, you know, still being respectful and loving, but I was just like, hey, we can talk about sex. We can talk about sobriety. We can talk about romance. We can talk about intimacy. Do people give me looks at like family gatherings? Yeah. Do people whisper? Yeah. Do people say like, so you really enjoy having sex all the time? And I think that was one of the most heartbreaking comments was from an older woman who was like, you actually want to have sex with your husband and you enjoy it? And like, that's when I knew how important it was that I continued to talk online about it. Because I was like, dang, I don't want to be there when I'm 65, 70. And then I looked back at her and I was like, wait, so you're telling me these decades upon decades that you've been with your spouse, you have not enjoyed it? I mean, not most of the time. And I mean, I'm really glad that I learned that though, because that's in my family line, right? Like that's something that I get to learn from. That's the people pleasing in me that used to come out in the bedroom. It was the performative people pleaser that it was like, well, I'm here for you. I'm still going to enjoy it, have fun, but I'm really doing this for you, not me.
That's so interesting. And I think the people pleasing thing is I don't know. I've never heard a man say, I have a problem with people pleasing. It's every time I ever hear of people pleasing, it's always been a woman.
Yeah.
And it's very few women that I ever talk to that have not been through that at some point in their life. So at what point for you were you able to let that go? For me, I will say, for me, it was very, very difficult because it was some boundaries in my life that I needed to have with people who I loved very deeply. And it was very, very difficult to allow myself to actually say what I needed. And it really, it damaged the relationship for a few years until,
Yeah.
So how did you do it? And then B, how do you guide other women through it? Because I'm sure this is a big one for you.
This is a big one. Yes. When you truly fall in love with yourself and come home to yourself and unbecome that self, you ignite this voice that is not going to go away. And it's undeniable. And it really calls you to have those conversations in a confident, loving, respectful way, knowing that I'm going to come to this conversation with curiosity, and I'm going to come and this is my boundary, this is what I want to share, this is how I want to connect, but I'm also coming knowing that I cannot control people, places, or things. I cannot control the other person, right? But there's a lot of work that comes to, there's really deep EFT tapping that I teach in a way where it really gets that energy out of your meridian points so you can truly sit in the being of yourself and come home to yourself in a way where you're like, oh my God, I actually feel good in my body. I actually know that I have to have this conversation now because I love myself so deeply and I know that I'm here for such a deep purpose. And I'm not going to waste the time anymore. I'm not going to waste this.
So how does somebody know if they're a people pleaser? Because I feel like sometimes you don't realize, you just think you're nice. Nice. I could never do that. That's my family. I could never do that. Those are my friends. So how do you know, what are the signs that you're actually a people pleaser and not just a nice person?
And I think too, you made a good point. When I got sober, people celebrated the shit out of me, right? When I worked on my codependency and my people pleasing, people were not happy. There was no celebrations. There were like all arguments. Like it was like an issue. And it's like, it's so funny to look back on now, right? But I really feel like the work I do with clients, it doesn't like blow stuff up or cause issues. It just allows for you to see the truth that was always there come to light. And it allows you to stop lying to yourself and be honest with the situation and the relationship that's at hand, so that you can really see it clearly without all the distractions, without all the numbing, without all the excuses. And so the people pleasing to me is when you're saying yes to everybody else and you keep saying no to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're at the point where you're like, you realize your life is not the way you want it to be because you're appeasing everyone else instead of admitting what you actually want and how you actually want things to be.
Yeah. I mean, to the point where it's like, I was so lost of who I was that I didn't know what paint color I liked. I didn't know what color pillows I wanted on my bed. I couldn't make a decision of what chandelier to buy, which chandeliers I think are just so fun. But that's another story. So I was so lost because I was handing over my power to everybody to make decisions for me that I didn't know that I was saying no to myself, because I made sure to fill my life with people who just wanted me to say yes to them. They wanted me to fit in the box. And as soon as I started saying no to certain people and certain things, that was the hardest part, Tori, and that has come to light across the years.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was doing it. Like I had built an entire life on it, and I didn't even notice it. And I don't even remember what it was. I mean, it was during my cancer journey that I started noticing it. And I noticed that, you know what it was for me is that during my cancer journey, I really had to take on a different mindset than I had had. And that mindset was different than the people I was surrounding myself with. And so that's when I started noticing the discrepancies. And then when I would start speaking out about things that I needed as part of my recovery, and it became an inconvenience to people that loved me the most, I was like, oh, wait a second, hold on. I'm fighting for my life. What do you mean you can't make it work because you have X, Y, or Z? And that was the first time that I was like, old me would have been fine with it. And that like literally it upended me in a very difficult way because it made me question all of the relationships. And I don't think that those people like have it out for me, or they just haven't done their own inner work to know that they're putting it on you. You know what I mean?
Oh, I totally. And I think that that's the greatest gift of doing this work, is you realize it has nothing to do with you. It has that by you standing in your truth and really coming home to yourself, you are then putting them in a position to look at their own truth. And that's,
and I'll tell you what, one of the craziest quotes I ever heard, and I'm going to botch this one, is the people who go to therapy, it's to deal with the people who should be in therapy.
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And dear God, I hope they're not listening to this right now. I know exactly who they are. But no, it's so true. But like, the people that I found that I've really had to draw those lines with are people who will not acknowledge that there's any issue themselves, you know?
Oh, 100%. And it's to accept people fully for who they are, not what you want them to become. And I think that's a huge step in the people-pleasing journey and the codependent journey, is fully accepting people for who they are, not for who you hope they will be. It's like, well, if we have one more conversation, Tori, then things are going to be different. If we do one more thing we just need to have a talk. They just need to really get it. Once they get it, everything will be fine. It'll be okay. They were having a bad day. you know, they had a bad conversation with their boss. We'll deal with this tomorrow. It's not a good time for them.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. And I think that's the hardest thing about setting boundaries is that you truly see who's in your corner. You truly see who will stand up for you. You truly see who is willing to say enough's enough, even if that means letting go of, like, I mean, your entire village almost sometimes. And that's kind of what it felt like for me this past year. It was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, we're going to co-sign for this? And you feel like, well, this is stupid. But then I'm like, well, I'm not here to convince anybody. You guys do whatever you want. But also it's like, you see who's going to bully other people and to try to like persuade them, manipulate them, make them feel bad for having a different opinion. And then it's like, I'm not available for that. And it hurts. It stings. You want to talk about being visible online and then getting bullied by people who you thought were your friend? And you're like, wow. It stings on another level, but you open your mind up to the truth. And it's blinding you and you can't ignore it anymore. And it was always there. As my husband said, he goes, Jen, this was always there. This has just forced you to see it and make a stance and decide. He goes, this was always here, Jen. And I'm like, it was.
And I'm so bad with this. Like, it's kind of a joke in my friend group that I'm really bad at reading people. Like, I always see the best in people. I'm always like, always their biggest cheerleader and always doing this. And then I, at some point, will come away being like, oh man, this person is a disaster. And they'll be like, we were telling you this for years. I'm like, I used to sometimes have to bring one of my friends who's better at reading people before, like, I fully let somebody into, like, inner circle level, because I'll tell everybody everything. I just have no filter. And I just see the best in everybody. Because I guess I see everybody's potential if I was living their life. And I kind of shut down, I don't want to say their downfalls, but like all of their like patterning that is bad. I'm like, oh, if they just do this, this, and this, they'll be fine. Like, let's just help them through this. And they're like, people don't all want to be helped. They just
Yeah. And giving people the benefit of the doubt, right? And I had somebody tell me when I was setting a boundary, they're like, look, I'm not as strong as you are, and you just need to deal with that. And I was like, no, I don't need to deal with that. And I believe that you have what it takes within you to do these things. But it's like, some people just aren't willing to do
Well, and
it.
I think there's some of us too who are just like, love the work, right? Like, I don't know at what point in my life I got super into self-development, but it becomes like, I mean, borderline addictive. And you want to bring everybody else along for the ride because you're like, look at all the incredible things that you can do when you do this work. And some people, and they're usually the ones that we need to have kind of those boundaries with, have zero desire to do any work. And maybe it's that they're content and that's great for them. But I mean, you see underneath they're not, and you see them complaining. But I think when you are a person who's done it, you just so desperately want to bring that gift to everybody.
I think at this point in my life, I can fully say, if you want it, I'm here to work with you. But the forcing, the like trying to convince you and all that, I don't have the energy for it. Like, I'm here and I'm available for the people who want to do it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. And I think also when your kids play travel sports like mine, you get to know a lot of different type of people and emotions get high and you really get to see certain sides of people, and learning to accept people fully for who they are and learning how to walk away, which I didn't always do, but you learn, right? And doing that, it really allows for you to see that, everyone's journey doesn't start at a certain age. I've had people come to me in their 60s, and so it's, people are ready when they're ready and some people are never ready. And that I have had to come to peace with. And let me tell you, I've way more energy now than I ever did.
Ooh, that's a good point. It's like really protecting your energy for the people who do. That's a really great way to look at it. I love that. Also, you just talked me out of travel sports ever. Check that off the box. So, going through all of this, your sobriety and then your journey, do you feel like it made you into a new woman, or do you think that it brought you back to the person you had been all along?
Brought me back to the person I was all along. She was always inside there. I just shut her down because I was afraid of being too much. I was afraid.
Well, one of the things that you said too that really struck me was you being able to be unapologetic was almost like the non-drunk version of drunk you.
Yeah.
You know, like the almost like the alcohol or whatever your substance was, the what it unlocked in you and gave you permission to be, suddenly being unapologetic gives you all that the good part. Now, I don't want to say good part because there's no good part of in that, but there is a freedom that you feel when you're on a substance that it sounds like being unapologetic kind of gives you the gift of still being able to be that version.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to give you an example, the first time I drank, my friend supplied the alcohol and she was like, "No, I don't really want to drink, but you can." And I was like, "Cool, more for me." So here I am with my friend. I'm the only one drinking. First of all, that's not normal. Second of all, after drinking like the 6 wine coolers, I decided to go dancing in the woods topless. And I thought it was like the best, most magical experience ever, and smoke like half a pack of cigarettes. And the next morning, I woke up feeling like the shittiest I've ever felt in my life, and I couldn't wait to do it again. Because, like, just that freedom, being free in my body, being able to just be like, I just want to dance in the woods topless.
That sounds like a retreat.
Yeah, right? Right?
Retreats like that now. Yeah.
Which is great because I did go on a recovery retreat and we went skinny dipping like under the moon and it was just like
Like
beautiful.
full circle moment.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But like that's the type of like that song that's like blame it on the alcohol. Like that was like me. I was like, well, I was like I was blackout. I didn't know, which a lot of times I was blacked out, but I used the alcohol to excuse the person who I was ashamed of. And now I get to celebrate her.
Yeah. I love that. We've talked a lot about a lot of heavy things today. What are some of the joy, some of the things that you're most proud of that this transformation and that has brought you?
I'm gonna like cry again. Tori,
Sorry.
I have not cried on a podcast in so long. Um, I would say my amazing 2 little boys and my husband. To have that and to have such a wonderful relationship with them is a gift that is priceless. It's incomparable. And being able to be their mom, being able to keep them safe and set boundaries and make sure that they get to truly live their childhood in a way that is expressive of themselves, but they also get challenged and they also learn. That's such a gift, man. It's not always easy, but man, is it such a privilege. Like those kids chose me as their mom. Like what a gift that is. And like Ray and I choose each other every day. Like Ray, I heard recently your marriage is the one family member you get to choose. And that like hit me so hard. I was like, damn, that's so true.
Yeah.
One, that's the one family member you choose in your
Well,
entire
and it's also the one that I think from so many people gets neglected for 18 plus years because you're raising tiny humans. And people forget, like, when all those tiny humans are grown and gone, that's the person that you are spending the rest of your life with. And so really nurturing that relationship. And listen, I'm not going to say we're perfect because we go through waves, but my husband and I have made it important to focus on us outside of being parents because we just operate differently when we're connected than when we're like
Oh,
just
yeah.
roommates that are. And listen, we've been through the roommates raising kids phase too, you know?
I think we all have, right? And I think that there's lots of different chapters and seasons in a marriage, and nothing is always perfect, right? Um, but I know that there are some people who have disagreed with me on this and been upset when I said it. But when I make a decision in life, there are priorities. First priority is my sobriety because I'm sober, like everything will work itself out. Second priority is my marriage. The third priority is the family. And the fourth is my business. People have a problem with me saying marriage over the family. And I truly believe that when a married couple prioritizes their marriage, now you can also still prioritize your kids and prioritize your marriage. But to have kids live in a home with a happy married couple, a couple that respects each other, loves each other, cherishes each other, is able to have those conversations, it can really change the energy of the home and the child's experience in their childhood.
Well, and then what they choose as adults too, right? Because most often we model our own relationships off of the relationships that were modeled for us, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So it's to me, it's that's one of the most important things to do. And to do that, there are certain boundaries that have to be set. So it goes back to not people pleasing so that you can truly be there for your spouse, so you can truly be there for your kids. If you're saying yes to everybody else, you can't really be there for the ones that matter most.
Yeah. And I think that was in my own journey. That was the thing. It's the same thing for me. What it gave me was the presence with the people I love because I would think I was checking all the boxes. I had kids, right? And people, but I was not present in the way that I am now. And it wasn't on purpose. It was like, work was so important and everything, everything's such a priority. And when you listen to that society piece of it, but when I really looked at what was most important to me and it was the family, it made me reprioritize everything and choose where I'm present and how I'm present and what that looks like.
And it's uncomfortable. Because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been through the numbing out on Netflix instead of playing with my kids. Like more than one season, and I'm not proud to admit that, but it's not always easy to be present as a mom, especially when you're going through something yourself, but it's a privilege.
And I mean, I lost a friendship over it was a friend who like wanted to always like meet up, go to the bar, go to do this or that or the other. And I was like, my priority in this season of my life is being home with my kids. And she got so offended that I was saying that that wasn't hers. And I was like, no, I'm not saying anything about you, but like, this is where I need to be. And I just not being able to wrap her head around where I was at and, you know, but I think it's so important. We only get so many years with these little humans, and like at some point they are going to choose whether or not they spend time with us, and so often it's based on how we act now and how we show priority for them and what we.
Yeah, and how we encourage them, how we challenge them, and how honest we are with them, right? Like, if you tell your kid they're perfect all the time and tell them that they're not doing anything wrong, that doesn't help them either. So like being able to be honest with your kid when they're like, "Hey, how do you think I did?" and be like, "I don't, how do you?" And then I always say like, "How do you think you did? What do you think your effort level was?" And my kids are the number one people to be like, "Yeah, I didn't really bring it all." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what did you learn from that?" And they're like, "I learned I need to change these things." And I was like, "Awesome. Then it wasn't a waste."
Yeah, so true.
Right? So, but life isn't, there are parts of life that aren't always comfortable or easy, and that's where support comes in. Because we don't need to go through it alone.
Yeah. And man, I have 4 kids, and every time I'm like, oh, this will be easier because I've done this before, but they're all so different and they all need such different support in different ways. And it's like, man, one easy one would be great, you know, just the
Right.
one.
I don't know how
I'm
you
not
do
going
it.
for a fifth though, so we're good. That's
I
it.
don't know how you do it, man. Four. Like that is like a different level. I have two. And I'm like, now was the jump from two to three harder or three to four?
So my husband came with two. So
Oh,
I helped raise the girls, but they've been, I mean, with us since I've been around. Um, so it was really like starting over, right? Because our the girls were older; they were teenagers when we had the boys. It's all hard. I don't think there's any jump that's harder than others. It's, some people say one to two, some people, once you're outnumbered, I don't know. And you keep thinking, like, I have adult children that are still, listen, we're still parenting. Like, never gets easy. So.
which I'm sure, does that like change how you parent the younger ones when you see like the older ones ask certain questions or do certain things?
Yeah, it has changed because there's some things that, like, looking back, I wish we had done differently. So that does help. And also, like, my older kids get mad sometimes because they're like, well, you didn't show up to all of our sporting events. And I'm like, we were both working full-time jobs and you had stuff at like 2 p.m. every day. And like, we did what we could. So like, I think all of your kids too, they get different versions of you in different seasons, and then they look back and they judge you for not being who they wished you had been. Which, listen, I wish I could have shown up then too, but like, I just didn't have that available.
Yeah, the
But
capacity is different.
yeah, I don't know. It also, like, there's an element of when you get to having adult children, there is a letting go that is very hard because they're going to still make choices that you don't agree with, that are really difficult for you to understand, that you're like, if you would just do it this way, you'd be fine. And they don't. And there is a letting go that has really benefited me in my like own like nervous system regulation parenting youngers, of being like, well, listen, here's what you should do, but if you don't want to, you're going to see the consequence and that's on you. Whereas like an older version of me would have been like raging.
Yeah. Where now, like, your nervous system is regulated in a totally
Yeah.
different way. And you also know that these challenges, they're going through them for a reason. And they're either going to learn or they're not. But I think that's the toughest part as a mom,
Oh
is
my gosh, yes.
seeing
Yeah.
the same pattern go over and and it's just like, dude, I feel like, I mean, I had the same patterns. I still have some of the same patterns.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing too, is like I'm much more aware now because I've been doing this work of some of the things that I say, and being very mindful about the words that I'm using, to not like label them as, like, if my kid's sitting around doing nothing for weeks, not calling them lazy,
Yeah.
but like instead being like, is this the best thing we could be doing with our time right now? So really choosing how much therapy I'm going to put them in later.
Well, very true. Very true. And also being like, okay, well, I'm not perfect either. I still have these flaws that have not been mastered and keep coming up. So it's like, no one's perfect, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the most helpful things of doing this work is allowing my kids to see me as imperfect.
I love that. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Well, this show is all about stepping into your highest self. And that's what I help women with in my own coaching. Do you have that, like a highest self version of you that you're always kind of modeling in your head?
Yeah, I think it constantly evolves and changes because I constantly get to know myself more and more. And that's the beauty of continuing to do the work, is who I'm stepping into changes.
What have been your favorite tools on that journey or lately for like tapping into that version of you?
Well, I love EFT tapping, so tapping. I love that. That really helps me connect with and move through the feelings that I don't like to feel. And so I'm able to feel them fast and rapidly. And so that's what I really love about tapping, is you feel the feelings, but you don't sit with them. And so it's like peeling away the layers. I love and I don't like all the time meditation. So sitting still is something that has changed my life, and connecting with my highest version of myself has been life changing, but it's also not always easy for me to do or to prioritize. Also, journaling is another one, really uncensored. And so doing all those things and just really getting it all out, and being true to myself so I can really see and not just keep it bottled up.
Yeah. I really love EFT tapping now. I found someone that does it in a very different way. That once you find the EFT tapping that works for you, because I had been doing it for a while and I was like, I don't get it. Nothing's happening. And it was like the 7 minute ones, right? But I found this person who does them and like very different. I love it now.
Is it so how I teach it, it's the raging out form. Like it's not the typical. I mean, I can coach you on that. I'm an EFT practitioner, but it's like I really coach people to be uncensored and
Yeah.
to really rage out.
I don't know that it is. This one is like, it's a lot of journaling with it.
Yeah.
And it really brings up all of the icky feelings and whatever you're trying to tap through. But then she like does this thing where she'll like break the pattern. So you get up and you dance and you like, so you're, whatever feeling you have in your body, you're getting up and you're moving that energy through and out of your body. And then like you keep coming, it's like anywhere from like an hour to 90 minutes, but it really, by the time you're through it, you're like, you have zero feelings about whatever the trigger was in the first place.
That sounds really similar to how I have them do it.
Okay, well,
So
maybe we should do a session because I'm
fun.
excited for years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really cool because, I mean, you can tap stuff out while you're driving. Like, there's like ways to incorporate tapping where you don't have to like keep yourself restricted. You can also keep a tapping journal. So if triggers come up throughout the day, then at the end of the day, you can tap it all out. And sometimes you can be really tired after tapping and then you can go to sleep. Like, so I love the versatility, just like you said, how you can like tap, 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 get it out. There's a journaling technique followed by tapping, followed by heart centering, followed by like truly energizing that I love to teach.
Do
So it's,
you have something like that available to people who don't necessarily need sobriety help, but
yes.
do want to try out tapping with you?
Oh yeah, definitely. If somebody wants to go deeper in that area, I am 100% available for it. I love it. I actually had a woman recently who's not in sobriety, but she's an old client of mine, and she's joining the fully alive experience that I'm doing in a group Telegram, and she's like, I have a feeling like I could still benefit. I'm like, oh yeah, you'll still benefit, and that's like the gift of doing this work is that it's still you don't have to be sober to work with me, right?
Well,
Like
tell us where we find you and tell us what kind of things you have available.
yeah, so come find me on Facebook, on Instagram, and it's Gen Stoney with a G, so GenStoney. And right now, I do have a group Telegram experience that's starting May 11th, and it's $444, and it's for 14 days. So we go deep, fast, it's immersive, it's community based, and you will leave truly feeling tuned in, tapped on, turned on with your own life. In a way that you didn't, and it can all happen in 2 weeks before Memorial Day. So,
I love it, and I will if you I'll share the link in the show notes.
thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. This was so fun, Tori.
Thanks so much for joining me.
Yes.
And please join us next week for another episode. And thanks so much for tuning in.